Welcome back to Modern Art Blitz. I'm your host, Matt Gleason. My guest now, Nery Gabriel Lemus. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're an artist of both precise craft and deep content. Is that fair enough?
If I don't know, I don't want to describe myself like that, but
you're happy to.
I'm happy to accept it.
I didn't get punched, so he must have at least.
I'm okay with the label. It's okay. It's okay.
So when did you start on the path of the artist?
You know, it's one of those things. Like since I was a kid, I don't know. People say like my mom says like 3 years old, which I don't know if that's possible or whatever. But I was that kid whose teacher said, "I want you to draw the Santa. You know, I want you to paint this for us, you know."
The kid who could draw.
And so I was always put to do these tasks, and my mother cleaned houses, you know, as I was a kid, and I would go with her. And one of the guys in the house, he worked for Disney, you know, and he did animation, so I was really intrigued by these characters. So I would just like watch him, and he was the first one to say, "Hey, look at Caravaggio, look at Leonardo, and just draw, you know, and just draw and draw and draw."
What a mentor to have.
Yeah. So I've always had that, you know, since I was a kid. Yeah.
So at some point you're making art, and it becomes a little more politically conscious. How do you go from Santa Claus and Disney to a little more politically conscious art?
Well, I think for me, what ended up happening was that since I was bused from LA to the San Fernando Valley to a predominantly, you know, white school, and it was part of the busing program, I got to a point where my identity was something that the Latin roots that I just didn't talk about at school. And I was a skater and hearing punk music, and that's what I was into. And so I kind of rejected that side. And my mom, who looked very indigenous, would come to school whenever I got in trouble, and I'll be like, "Oh no," you know.
Weekly then, right?
Exactly, you know, exactly. So it's like at some point I said, "Wait a minute, you know, brown is beautiful. I love my skin tone." And it's like I love my Guatemalan roots, and I was researching and trying to, you know, learn more and more. And so at the beginning, it was the cultural kind of signifiers that you find within Day of the Dead, and just of course, since, you know, growing up I grew up in Pico Union, but majority of, you know, friends that I had were Mexican, so it's a lot of the Mexican iconography, and as time went on, it was that Guatemalan iconography became very important in my work.
Okay. Yeah. So it's impossible to escape the Mexican influence But in the World Cup, you're rooting for Guatemala, right? Help me out here.
Oh man.
Put it on the line here. Come on.
That team hasn't won anything.
I know, not that they weren't, but I'm just saying, if somebody's all like, you know, you're not gonna.
Hey man, you know.
You don't want to get.
Of course. I have the shirt. Okay. I have the shirt. Okay, you know.
Okay. You might be better than half the team, right? So,
you know,
so tell us what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so this is a alfombra that I did, I think last year, and it's a memorial to 3 unknown females. And what we're looking at within, you know, one of the things that people don't know is that when people migrate, the number one cause is they die of dehydration, you know.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes people are out there for such a long time that their bodies are not recognizable.
They've dehydrated and almost...
Yeah, so they have cemeteries where they bury them and put these plaques, and they just put unidentified women, and they have the location. So in there's Cantina Ranch, which is a location, and they have the number. So I wanted to create this memorial for these women.
And is this like a carpet?
It's a carpet. So I used to do them out of sawdust, out of the tradition from Guatemala, and then I started doing them out of welcome mats.
Okay.
And so it's an acrylic. I guess you could say it's an acrylic painting.
It's an acrylic painting, but they're on the floor.
They're on the floor, exactly.
Now, you've done a lot of work on the floor.
I've done some, yeah. It's not good for my back, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, no. You can put it on an easel, do it, and then just throw it on the floor.
Yeah, I can't. Well, not for the sawdust pieces, because the sawdust will just...
Oh, just, no, that's
yeah,
all,
but
all.
For these pieces, I I can, and I've been thinking about that as a way of doing it.
Do people walk on your work? Is it inevitable that it's going to get scuffed up?
It's happened, and
you don't want it though, right?
I don't know. I mean, I don't, but now it's like, if it happens, I'm okay. It's not like, oh my God.
Okay, it's not precious. But I'm thinking like Carl Andre, he wanted you to walk.
Right, exactly.
He wanted you to feel that.
There's something about it. I mean, the sawdust pieces, I have people walk on them, and that's kind of this more ephemeral piece. And when people walk on them, they, at the end, it's just like dust.
It destroys the piece.
It destroys it.
So that's more of a Dada statement, like.
Well, in a sense, people have said destroyed, but if I could kind of like bring another word, but it brings the work to completion. You know? Yeah, because in the tradition in Guatemala, it's more kind of like they do it for Holy Week. So they lay them out, and they have processions that go over them. So they're not necessarily destroy them, but they were made as a, just to commemorate, Christ and Christ, coming into the town, and they carried saints and sort of things. And I kind of like use more contemporary political kind of messages.
Is the sawdust tradition a locality in Guatemala, or would it be throughout Guatemala?
Throughout Guatemala and in other parts of Central America and Mexico. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So just that region.
Yeah, it's something they've been doing for some time.
And what year are we looking at? Did you do the memorials?
This one, I believe it was last year. I did it last year.
Okay, 2016.
Yeah, but I've barely exhibited this year, and I probably exhibited again. I'm not. Maybe next year when I have a solo show, I'll probably
Where are you having a solo show next year?
Probably my gallery, Charlie
gallery?
James Gallery.
Charlie James Gallery in Chinatown.
In Chinatown, yeah.
You worked with Charlie for a while now.
Yeah, it's been a couple years.
Yeah, that's good. Well, he's a great dealer. There's a lot of artists would love to have a dealer as good and committed as Charlie.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yes. And I'm not just saying that because he's my neighbor. I'm saying that because I see all the happy artists walking out with their bags of money. So let's move on. I know you have a lot of other art you brought today, and I want to see. Can we get another artwork up? There we go. What are we looking at here? So
these pieces they call them my Immigrant Landscapes, and these are watercolors that I've been working on lately, which I was like, watercolors, really? I'm going into plein air painting, come on. But for me, it's like the idea behind them, I just felt I needed to do it in this medium. And what they are is kind of looking at the trajectory which immigrants go through the desert, or houses they stay at, and changing the signs that you normally see. So this one, it's a poem by Emma Lazarus, and it's that, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses.
It's on the Statue of Liberty.
It's on the Statue of Liberty, and it was through Ellis Island. They were letting immigrants in, and it was basically this kind of poem that, or in the statue's way, lighting the way for immigrants to come into this country.
And what's interesting is you've made it kind of just this Bureau of Parks and Recreation of California lettering, like this bureaucratic sign,
right?
But and welcoming people in the middle of the desert here, right?
Right.
Looks like a California desertscape.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the actual sign said like illegal, immigrant activity happens in this location.
Oh wow!
And so I basically changed the text.
Based it on that.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So, but doing the watercolor, is that? And I ask other watercolor people, artists, people who have no necessarily political content, but I have to ask you a watercolor question.
Yeah.
Because it is the most demanding, frustrating. If you make one mistake, it's like fixing that mistake is like you might just go, well, start again. Do you have to chuck a lot of them?
Well, I'm pretty good at I dare you to look and find a mistake, but there's ones, like I remember I was working on this one piece, and I had I use the actual tubes of watercolor.
Oh,
right?
Okay, so you kind of draw the tube?
Well, no, I put it on my palette, and from that I work. But this one time I put my source image, and I put it down, and I didn't realize, I had to put it. And then I put it on my paper, and then when I take it off, there's this green paint. I'm like, oh no. My God, I just ruined this piece, But, through arm power, sandpaper, and
I thought you say, well,
gouache, and a whole bunch of other stuff, it's pretty much unnoticeable.
Yeah? Okay.
But I've kind of, it's interesting that you kind of started the conversation, because for a while people would say like, oh, this guy's one of those fetish finish artists. He's like really attention to detail, And I've learned to be okay when something doesn't go my way. It's like, okay, it didn't work this way, but it's a happy accident. Something's going to happen that's going to be better.
Repeat after me. The perfect is the enemy of the good. Okay?
Oh, for sure.
And
the perfect is the enemy of the good.
Good delivered beats great pending.
Oh, my goodness. You know, when you say that, there's something I've been telling my students lately. It's something I heard in this audio book. But this teacher, this professor, broke his class into two sections. One of them, he says, I want you guys to focus on quantity, and I want you guys to focus on quality. And so what ended up happening when they brought in, it said the quality people, it's like, you don't have to make a lot just as long as you have that quality. When they came in, the ones that had the best work were the ones that did the quantity. So the idea was that when you focus on quality or think about creating a masterpiece or a great piece, it hinders you. You know what I mean? But when you just work and don't look at it like as this is great, it has to be perfect, it has to be amazing, but you just work, things start to happen, things start to come out.
Nice,
you know?
nice.
And that's something that I've kind of like allowed myself as I work now.
Where do you teach?
Azusa Pacific.
Azusa Pacific University?
Yes, sir.
I once gave a talk there, and about a minute before I started talking, I realized, this is a Christian school? I was like,
Yeah.
I can't say the F word. I
should have.
apologized in
I mean,
advance.
it's fine.
There's going to be a few F words here, folks.
There's going to be some F-bombs here.
Yeah, they didn't mind. They didn't mind.
Yeah.
Great school. Great
Yeah,
school.
yeah, it's great.
So let's go on and see. I like the watercolors though. I'm not. What else? What's this?
So this is another watercolor. So basically what it is the whole poem. So there's sections of the poem. So this one says, "Send these, the homeless, tempest tossed to me."
Oh, this is the Emma Lazarus poem.
Yeah, it continues. Okay. So this would be like a house where someone's waiting to move on to go to the next place, you know. And so I also call this, you know, this one was Immigrant Landscape number 2.
Are these all the same size? Are you trying?
They're
to
all the same size.
Like a series.
It's a series, but you know, I'm going to do some larger ones. There's going to be different sizes, and there's going to be things that I'm going to focus on. They're kind of specific objects that I'm thinking about for the show. So
cool.
You
now,
know,
I saw you were in a show. I want to say it was about 2 years ago at Barnsdall. Maybe it was last year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What was the show and like?
Skin.
Skin. Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Skin.
It was a great show.
Yeah.
So how was working in that show?
Oh, it was great. I mean, I think you know, just to see the artists and Isabel, you know, put together this exhibition dealing with identity, and it was. And they had you know, what was really nice about it is that they had these sections where the audience came in and you could contribute and you could write down your thoughts and ideas. So I was really excited about that. And the work that I did for that was a show that I had at Charlie's as well, which was, it's a series of a Black Panther and a brown bear, like a children's book that become friends. And it's kind of like this odd couple, and the brown bear was named after, what's his name? I'm trying to remember. Well, the panther was Bunchy, named after, oh man, you just caught me.
Did you publish this as a book, or did you
I'm going to.
The goal would be
the goal is to, and I'm talking to some person, you know, and you know, hopefully, and I just remember the bear was Corky, after Corky Gonzalez, you know, and so they become friends, and it's, I guess for me, it's these are the basic things as I became an artist, that you look at text and you look at image and you get a message from it, you know. So even to when you're a child, you know. So that was the idea behind the work.
Are there limits to content relative to wanting to make a great painting, wanting to make a beautiful art object? And sometimes you're like, you have to sacrifice message and content to make sure that to ensure that you have a beautiful artwork?
Well, I guess I would say that I don't look at art as necessarily, you know, beautiful. You know what I mean?
Well, your work is pretty. I mean.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
You do achieve it.
Thank you. I guess what I'm saying is that, you know, because it can be very subjective. You know, like you look at a lot of African sculpture, and you know, in certain times they would classify that as primitive, you know, and they would look at kind of like European kind of way of working with marble. It's like, wow, look at how detailed. But that to me is beautiful, you know what I mean? So it's very subjective, but there is these categories. So so when I create work, I just create it because it's like I'm drawn to it, and you know, it feels right. And going back to that statement, I think if I look at it as like trying to create a masterpiece or something beautiful, it's going to hinder me. So I just create, you know, okay. And that's how I think
we got one more here. Let's take a look.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I left my lamp beside the golden door.
And this is people leaving water for the
for immigrants, right, on trees, and so it's something that again, you know, dehydration, and
I mean, it's rough terrain.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, I think with me, it's like I look at things like this. It's like you know, as artists, we tend to criticize a lot of things, and I think it's important, you know, to have that voice. But at the same time, where's the alternative, you know? And so those are kind of things that I do within my work, and also as an artist that deals with these messages, you know, being in the gallery scene and doing all these things, I want to be able to inclusively have my hand out in the community. So I do community-based projects as well, because I think, I mean, a lot of artists deal with social issues, but at the end of the day, I want to be able to say, not only did I do that, but I invested some time out in the community. So I work with incarcerated youth, and we paint murals, and I teach them art and those sort of things as well. So
free their mind, maybe steer them in a better direction.
Right. Yeah, as part of my own practice as well.
Great.
Yeah.
So do you have any shows coming up?
Let me see. A couple group shows. One that's I can't remember it right now. You know, but you know, the big thing is going to be next year.
Here's the thing. When people have a long list, it's harder to remember. When you have a short list, you're like, yep, I'm showing here. All right. When you got a long list, like Nery here is doing a million things, it's like, well, just a bunch of shit, right?
No,
hey man, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on here.
Nery Gabriel Lemus, and we will be back right after this.